Hey guys, and we are here. Welcome to Massive Iron Live. It is Friday, April 26th. Good to have you guys here. Welcome to another edition of Live. Massive Iron Live, the longest running lifting podcast and Q&A in the history of the universe. And that may or may not be true, but I'm kind of leaning on it to be true. This podcast isn't really on Spotify and it isn't really on the other stuff, but it is on YouTube, so it's got to count for something. So appreciate you guys joining here. Hope you joining in, whatever you're doing. Hope you had a good week. I've had a pretty decent couple of weeks of lifting. I'm pretty happy with how things are going, so on and so forth. So if you're new here, don't hesitate to post up your questions. I answer every question answered. Diet, training, nutrition, and tastefully, what would you call it? Tasteful off-topic questions. So if your questions don't go through, try rewording them. Sometimes the filter on YouTube will block certain words randomly. And sometimes if your questions are too long, YouTube might filter them. It's not me throttling you. So before I dive into things, and if you guys have any YouTube videos you saw, if you ever need a form video done, you can always paste it up in here, the link, or send it to me via email and let me know, and I'd be happy to look at that during live. If you want to be critiqued live in front of 8 million people or 80 people. So anyway, before I get into things, let me just pop this up here real quick. If you need anything, please check out superlivingtoday.com. I do custom workouts. You can check out the website. You just search custom, and those are only $39.99. They're actually one of my most popular services, and I do them every Saturday morning. I got a few to do this weekend. Last weekend I had 4. So I'm usually doing anywhere from 2, 3, or 4 every Saturday morning. If you would like a custom workout, please check that out. And if you'd like coaching, please head over here and check out the coaching tab. I did have a couple slots fill up this week. It was a pretty busy week for me, but I'm always taking on new people. I mean, I do this for a living. I work 12 to 14 hours a day. It's what I love to do. Coaching is what I love to do. So that's my story. Also, apparel, if you want some good lifting shirts, I have some. Check out the apparel tab over there. I also have my books, Massive Omnibus and Massive Iron, PDF versions, and for Massive Iron, a regular version, just a regular old book, if you remember those. And you got things like gym bags. The Massive Iron gym bag is rock solid. It is big. It is juicy. It is top quality. That is all over here. And check out the workouts tab. I have something called the Massive Collection, which is about 350 pages of nearly every workout I ever created. So enough of the commercial. Go buy stuff. Support a small creator. I appreciate it. Let's get into things. Let me get settled in. We're going to start with the old Candlestick. Harris, your thoughts from Team Massive. Your thoughts on modified candlestick exercises for abs? Absolutely. I have messed around with them. I'm not very good at them. I've had clients mess around with them. They're better than me. But if you want to do any sort of core stability or, work like this, unique work, dragon flags, candlestick exercise, whatever you want to call it, go right ahead. I mean, once you get done with the meat and potatoes of your lifting, hitting the big juicy body parts, you want to do stuff for, funky stuff, body weight exercises, kettlebell exercises, general conditioning stuff like sled drags or farmer's carries or, whatever wacky exercise you want to do for forearms or grip or abs. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Exercise is exercise. Everything is good as long as you're enjoying it. and that's super reasonable. Yvonne, how's it going, Yvonne from Team Massive? Good to see you. And Shelly Turner, good morning. What did I miss here? I think I missed a couple questions. I didn't scroll up enough. Sorry, Harris. I'll get back to them. Good morning, Team Massive. In bulking, how do you know when to raise your calories and by how much? Okay, so when we are bulking, what we are doing is looking at trends. So we will look at the trend for a client, or you can look at a trend, on if you're doing it yourself, you don't have a coach, you want to graph this thing and you want to look for trends. And if the trend is flatline and it's apparent that we need to add calories, I don't like to add a lot, because we were talking about this on Team Massive yesterday. There can sometimes be tipping points. It's not always a math formula, and we can't assume that bulking or cutting is going to be a simple math formula, because generally it's not. You can have somebody that's not losing weight at a certain calorie level, and you could add in, say, 60 minutes a week of cardio or drop calories 100 per day, and all of a sudden they're losing 2 pounds a week where they were losing nothing before. So we can't assume it's a math formula. That doesn't mean calories in, calories out. Doesn't matter. But we have to be a little bit more meticulous and make small adjustments. So if somebody is not gaining weight, for a man, we're probably going to add about, like if it's flatline, for a man, we're going to add 200 calories. That's usually the starting point. If somebody is trying to bulk and they're going down a little bit, we're probably going to add 300 or 350. For a woman, I would probably be less aggressive. I'd probably do more like 100, just because women have a lower calorie intake, a lower TDE, and all that good stuff. So if it's kind of moving up, for women, but it's tediously slow, I would say still add 100 calories, and then we can always, you're probably not going to need to back it down. But at this point, you're just trying to, you're flying steady. You just need to kind of course correct a little bit. So I hope that helps some. And Harris, I missed your questions up here. Sorry about that. Happy weekend, Team Massive. Late great John Meadows recommended tibialis raises. Your rocking calf raises, work that muscle. Very similar. Rocking calf raises is something I recommend to some of my clients. Not all. It's something I like to do. It's something you can do in a home gym. It's good for the calves, and you can do work the tibia as well. So on a rocking calf raise, you hold a barbell in front of you. If you search this lift over on YouTube, you're going to see somebody with a barbell on their back, and you don't really want to hold a barbell on your back doing a rocking calf raise for a minute. It's just going to put stress on your shoulders. That really isn't worth it when you can simply hold the barbell in front of you. So on a rocking calf raise, I like to do a lot of volume. I don't like it to be super heavy. You can still progressively overload it, of course, but I like to do anywhere from 20 to rest pause 50 rep sets. I like rest pause on this. Why? I don't know. You don't have to do rest pause, but on a rocking calf raise, you rock the weight back on your heel. Okay. You don't have to, you can lift your foot up slightly if you want to, but you don't have to get ridiculously unbalanced. So you rock your weight back on your heel, and then you rock forward and push up with your calves. Then you rock back, put your weight on your heel, rock forward and push up with your calves. Does that make sense? Would you guys like to see a video of this? I think the video of this that I typically reference for clients, and let me just pull it up here, it involves the individual putting the weight on his back. So let's just see what we got here. Here we go. Let me just mute it because we don't want music. Let me just pull this up. 1 second. We have it. Let me just do this. Whoops. I almost disconnected something. I was disconnected Facebook. All right, here we go. Present, share screen, rocking. I think this is an ad right here. No, it's just our intro. Okay, so you can see this individual has the weight on his back. Don't do that. I want you to hold it in front. So let's see what he's doing. Okay, he's rocking back and raising your foot. You really don't need to do this. I just want you to rock back and get your weight on your heels. If you want to raise your toes a little bit, you can, but then you go and push up, rock back on your heels, push up, rock back on your heels, push up. Again, we're not arbitrarily saying you have to lift your foot off the ground. You do want to shift your weight back on your heels. You can raise your toes slightly, but that's a rocking calf raise. And it's something you can do at home if you don't have a calf machine, seated or standing calf raises. And I enjoy it. I used to do the standing single arm dumbbell calf raise where I would hold a dumbbell in like the right hand, and then I would brace myself against the rack and do calf raises on the right foot. But just a really, really good option. All right. How do I know if I need more volume for a certain muscle group? Well, first off, when we are structuring volume, we assess how many days a week we want to train. How many days a week can you train? 3, 4, every other day, which would be 3.5. You multiply that by 18 hard sets. This is a starting point and not a rule. So as my mother would say, don't get your undies in a bundle, right? Don't get your undies in a bunch. We're not trying to create rules saying everybody needs to do 18 sets per workout. We don't roll like that in massive iron. We have reasonable starting points, and you adjust from there. So how many days a week are you training? 3, 3.5, 4. You multiply that by 18 to get the total number of sets you're going to do, starting point per week. So let's say you're doing 4 workouts of 18 sets per day. That's 72 sets per week. Now we take the rule of 2/3 and we multiply our weekly sets by the rule of 2/3. And that would give us 48 hard sets for major areas of coverage. Your chest, your shoulders, your back, and your quads. Major areas of focus. Then the remaining sets, you have 24. You take 2/3 of that and you multiply that. You take 2/3 of that. Again, we're doing the rule of 2/3. And you use that as a starting point for your biceps, your triceps, and your hamstrings. So if you have 24 sets, by 2/3 is going to be 16. So roughly we're going to end up doing about 6, 6, and 6 for hamstrings, biceps, and triceps. And then the rest you can use on whatever, traps, abs, forearms, neck, tibia raises, whatever you want to do. These are starting points. So now we have our starting point, whether it's 3, 4, 5, whatever days a week it is. You go into the gym and you do your workouts and you ask yourself, is this going well for me? Do I feel like I need a little bit more back work? Do I want to do a little bit more back work? Do I want to do a little bit more quad work? Okay. So you're going to put together a reasonable selection of exercises for each of these major areas. Let's say for chest, you decide you want to do a barbell bench, an inclined dumbbell bench, and then you want to do a machine chest press, and you want to do a pecky decky. So you have 4 exercises over the course of a week, 3 sets each. They can be 2 sets if you want, doesn't matter. We're not trying to create rules. So you have 12 total sets for your chest. So you're in the gym and you find, hey, on pecky decky, 3 sets are going well, but I might want to do 4 or even 5 because I have a little bit more energy at the end. And I want to do it because I have the time and the will and the energy. So this is what we call evolving training based on needs. You start at the starting point, and then based on what is happening in the gym, you evolve things if you want to do a little bit more. If you want to add a little bit more on chest and you don't want to add a little bit more on back, no one's going to call the hypertrophy police. You're perfectly okay doing that. Not everything has to be perfectly balanced. Do what you want, have fun. It's only lifting, right? So let's say I'll give you an example. My back work, my back day, I do deadlifts and then I do dumbbell rows and then I do the other stuff, right? So I have kind of evolved things over time based on needs. Deadlifts, I'll go in and do 2 or 3 hard sets, depending on how I feel that day. I will only do 1 set of dumbbell rows. And I know that sounds extremely scandalous to some people that like to have everything nice and tidy and equal. But I'm doing usually a set of 200 to 220 to 250 pound single arm dumbbell rows for anywhere from 10 to 25 reps. I am spent after doing a unilateral or 1 set for each side. So then I move on. Now, I will alternate every other week with dumbbell rows and pendlay rows. For pendlay rows, I like to do 4 sets of 6. Why? It might not make sense to you, but because I prefer lower reps on pendlay rows and more sets rather than higher reps. I just feel I focus better. Why? Who knows, right? It doesn't have to matter. As long as our exercise selection over the course of a week is reasonable and what we're doing rep range wise, et cetera, is reasonable relative to the exercise. So I just did my deadlifts on my back day and either dumbbell or barbell rows. Now I'm going to move on to seated cable rows and V-bar lat pull downs. Some days I do 3, some days I do 4, some days I do 5. Usually I do sets of 10. Why? I don't know. It's just what I like to do for them. When I get to 12 reps on lat pull downs, it just feels a little bit tedious or long in the tooth. So I will vary what I do on those days. Basically 3 sets of 10 or 4 sets of 10 or 5 sets of 10. Sometimes on seated cable rows, if I'm feeling a little bit saucy, a little bit juicy, a little bit spicy, I'll ramp up or I'll run the stack up. Sometimes on lat pull downs, I'll do that. I'll run the stack up. I'll start, with 100 and move up to 120 and 140. Why? Who knows? It's just I enjoy doing it on that day. And honestly, after 40 years of lifting, I can pretty much do whatever I want as long as I'm training hard. So I'll get in the seated cable rows and lat pull downs, which are physically less intense. And then if I have any energy left, I will maybe do a machine row or, depending on the gym, some kind of funkadelic, machine high to low row. Maybe sometimes lat prayers, it just depends. If I see, a dumbbell pullover machine over an old school Nautilus pullover, I would do that. But volume is basically based on what's happening in the gym. And you can adjust that as long as it's reasonable and as long as you're not doing anything ridiculous or downgrading your exercise selection to something that isn't impactful. So I hope that makes sense. Among the major muscle groups, which one requires the most time to grow to a decent size? They're all pretty much equal. Muscles are going to respond to the same process, which is hard training and progressive overload. Everyone is different. Of course, the quadriceps are bigger in nature. I think with chest, a lot of people expect to have like this slab that sits on their chest, like Arnold, like the old pictures of Arnold, or the side chest where it looks like it's popping out like 3-4 inches, that optical illusion. But I think honestly, the chest, part of it's genetic, of course, your shape and how it looks. But I think for a lot of people, chest just doesn't look how they want it to look, if that makes sense. I don't think enough people train shoulders and back hard enough to get decent size, and they might get frustrated with that. You really have to train the shoulders hard. You have to train it intense, just like you do bench press. The same with back. You can't get away with just doing lat pull downs and lighter machine work and feely work. At some point you're going to have to strap it on and slap it on and get some big hitters in the mix. So I don't really think it's any of them. I would simply say that I think a lot of people have high expectations of the chest, and I think it can be very disappointing for many. All right, let me get a drink here and continue on. Good questions today. Thank you, guys. I saw Andreas say that he posted something on Facebook. I can't see anything on Facebook. Facebook doesn't port over here. Sometimes it does. Oh yeah, I can see it. I can see it now. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Facebook is really weird. I use a platform called StreamYard, and randomly it disconnects or doesn't connect properly. Facebook does what Facebook does, right? Is it worth doing a purely squeeze-focused leg curl machine for hams? I do 2 sets of stiff leg deadlifts. Yeah, absolutely. You want to do some sort of a leg curl if you can. Number one, they're low impact, so they generally aren't going to beat you up or leave you feeling overworked. I've been playing a lot lately with higher rep work on the hamstrings. I have kind of a mental tick when it comes to hammies. Like, I don't want to be overly powerful during my hamstring movements. That doesn't mean I don't want to generate a reasonable degree of power, but I am kind of a little bit nervous about overpowering the hamstring. So I will have a reasonable degree of acceleration and power, but lately I've been really focusing on getting in higher rep or more volume in that lane. So anywhere from 12 to 15 or even 15 to 20. I think doing that, getting that good mechanical tension without going to the hyper explosive level is probably a good idea. Which variation of leg curls should you use? Should you use a seated, a lying, a standing? It really doesn't matter. Use what's best for you. I've used them all over the years. It really comes down to the setup of the machine and the leverages and the feel. All right. Is it okay if I can't connect with my quads? Yeah, don't worry about, if you can feel a muscle work, that's good. But don't panic if you can't, because if your form is good, if your control is good during your eccentrics on the leg press, I'm not telling you to slow it going down, but you want good control while lowering the leg press, okay? And then you want to get it deep enough. You don't want to, really do half, or you want to get the leg press deep enough where it doesn't cause lower back stress. And then you press up, control down, get deep enough where it doesn't have lower back stress, and then you press up. So let's say you're in this groove with form and you really can't feel your quads working, but you spent 2, 3, 4 years progressively overloading and attacking. Your quads are going to grow. Feeling is not a requirement. It is a side bonus. For example, on squats, I've been squatting for 40 years. Rarely outside of German volume training do my quads get sore. Now, when I squat, my hammies get sore. Almost always. It's almost it's one of the truisms of my training. I do squats, my hamstrings get sore, but here's the thing you need to understand. My hamstrings are one of my weaker body parts. And my quads are big. They're one of my stronger, bigger body parts. And the thing is, you don't need to feel a muscle working for it to grow. It doesn't need to get sore for it to grow. Lifts, compound movements can be very deceptive. On my squats, for example, I don't feel that soreness in my quads, but I feel them on my hamstrings. So we can have the knee-jerk reaction that they are not working my quads. They are working my hamstrings because my hamstrings are sore. But in my case, it's the opposite. My quads are growing and my hamstrings really aren't growing to the level I want them to. My hamstrings are a weak muscle group in the equation. And because my quads are getting so big and so strong, and I'm so quad dominant, and they're growing during leg presses and squats, my weaker little hamstrings, which are still in the equation, are taking a lot of stress during these lifts. Unfortunately, they're not growing to the degree I want them to, but you can have a weaker muscle group in the equation and it can be sore or get beat up, but that doesn't mean the big muscle groups aren't getting worked. Does that make sense? I was going to give an example, and I forgot which example I was going to give on this. When people start bench pressing, almost always you're going to feel your front delts getting sore. It's kind of a rite of passage, right? You get under your bench press and all my front delts are sore. And you might think, I'm not working my chest, I'm not working my triceps. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's just that all those big muscle groups, your chest, your triceps, they're hitting it. And the front delts, which have a lot of room to grow, are kind of just getting hit hard de facto because they're involved in the movement. The same thing with squats. Your lower back's probably going to take a beating because it's kind of the weak link in the chain. Does that make sense? All righty. If I can't, we already did that. Sorry, that was a repeat. Apologies. How would you go about concretely finding arm volume for yourself at an early intermediate? Basically, I just talked about the rule of 72. You structure your workouts based on the rule of 70 or the rule of 18 hard sets per workout. And then you factor in, the rule of 2/3 to develop a starting amount of arm work. And then you can add more arm work if you want. I like adding in a junk day. I like doing more arm work. Who doesn't? Who doesn't like big arms? And the arms generally recover. 60 to 70% of our arm growth or whatever. I'm not trying to create a rule. Whatever arbitrary amount is going to come from just progressing in your compounds. And then adding in the arm work is going to be the extra icing on the cake and the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. Start with a reasonable place. And then if you have more time in the gym and you want to add in more arm work, go right ahead as long as you are recovered. Let's see. I have a baseline of 6 sets for bis and tris. Yeah, it's fine. You could go as high as an equal amount for your arms as you do your big areas of focus, as long as you have time. And that might seem scandalous, but who cares? It's just lifting, right? It's, do what you like. There's too much optimization in lifting and not enough hard training. So do what you like. That's perfectly fine. Big Joe, how's it going, Joe? Welcome to the party. Big Bob, how's it going, Bob? Client of mine. Good morning, Team Massive. And Ernie, client of mine. Glad to see you guys here. We have been on for 30 minutes, and I am going to have a little bit of purple muscle. I've been on coffee all week. I actually got back on coffee. Hey, you can see my microphone here. I must have bumped the camera. I just noticed that. I got back on coffee to kind of save money on these things because while I enjoy them, they're a colossal waste of cash. It's just flavored bubble water, right, with a little bit of caffeine. So anyway, before I move on, I have my group over on Discord. You can check out the link in the previous video I did comparing John Meadows and myself. The link is in the description box, or if you can't find it, hit me up on Instagram. So that video, I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to check out that video series, but I wanted to find, I get a lot of questions about the protocol where I do last set max reps. So I do probably for about 50% of my client work, you'll do the same weight for 10 reps, and then max reps on the last set. Whatever. The rep range will vary, right? But I get a lot of questions on that. People get paranoid it's junk volume. So I'm like, let me do a search and see if there's any other coaches that use that same protocol, because it's just something I developed over the years. Over the course of 10 years, you can't literally push every set to the limit. So I like to get in a little bit more mechanical tension, more mechanical stress. It's not junk volume, right? It's these sets, these feeder sets, if you will, are warming up your central nervous system. They're getting you connected to the exercise. And we're still training every rep hard. We're still trying to get every rep we can, or make every rep as hard as possible. Anyway, I found out that John Meadows would use a very similar protocol. He might ramp at times or do straight sets or whatever, but he did focus on maximizing the last set. And even though there might be nuanced differences, I thought it was interesting that John and I both came to a lot of the same conclusions, even though the application isn't always perfectly equal. I have taught over the years that if you're going to do intensity techniques, do them on the last set of an exercise, drop sets, run the stack, whatever you're going to do, unless it's pure rest pause, of course. And I found John was an advocate of that as well. I was unaware. And it's not like we are digging deep to find people that agree with us. It's just interesting, that I've been doing this for this long, and to find out another major coach, kind of had the same principles. That's just interesting to me. I want to explore some other coaches. So if you have anybody that has a specific protocol that is like what I teach, or maybe it's opposite of what I teach, let me know. I'd like to take a look at it, because I am not afraid, and as you guys know, of anything that's different from the way I train or teach training, because I understand there is no magic. Sometimes I equate what I do almost like Bruce Lee's system of martial arts, in that you take a little bit from everything, but as long as it's reasonable and effective, right? Because in Jeet Kune Do, if it's not effective, you wouldn't use it, right? So this isn't something I think about often, but occasionally I think it's kind of the same thing, like a meta system where you're taking the best that works for you, and you're looking back at over the history of lifting, and as long as it's reasonable it works, use it. So I'm not afraid of things that aren't what I teach, because I understand the big picture. So anyway, Isaac, how's it going, Isaac? Thanks for tuning in. Morning, Big Hairy Ugly Dude and Team Massive. What, in your opinion, are good things for recovery, active recovery, besides sleep and food? One thing I like to do is I like to soak my butt in some BHUD soup. I like to do hot baths. I just like to get my body in that heat, get the blood flowing. You don't have to do that, but something like a sauna or something equivalent would probably, long hot showers. Why not? Just to get the body loose and the blood flowing. I used to get on my butt. I would always get my steps in. I would play basketball or I'd run. But when I wasn't being active, I always tried to get as much active recovery as I could, sitting on the couch, watching a movie, getting in my sleep. Just things like that, practicing good sleep hygiene. You can make great gains when your sleep is less than perfect. The body is not that fragile, but you also should make every attempt you can to practice good sleep hygiene. When it comes to lifting, the body is truly not that fragile. Lifting or any fitness endeavor, sleep is subpar, nutrition is subpar. Hey, can I still make great gains when my nutrition's kind of subpar or my sleep is subpar? Of course. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to maximize them. So active recovery, you can do other forms of exercise that don't have a high toll or high recovery toll. And you're speaking to somebody that ran 12 to 14 hours a week. My body adapted, and that's good. So that's going to be highly individual. Light swimming, just walking on the treadmill, getting in some steps, getting the blood flowing, just things like that. You can stretch if you want. You can do yoga if you want, if you find value. Stretching isn't magic. Yoga isn't magic. Things like that aren't magic. But if you do have some soreness, a lot of it is going to be in the fascia or connective tissue. So loosening that up sometimes can feel like a very positive thing. Sheltered friend, good morning. I thought that was Shelly at first. Messed me up. JR, how's it going, JR? Thanks for tuning in. Damien Paul, one of the best podcasters in the industry. I've been wondering how you've been. I've been kind of keeping an eyeball. I know you're not doing your podcast right now, correct? But somebody I highly respect. Good to see you. What do you think of doing only machines and dumbbells? Well, I think dumbbells are very, very good for hypertrophy. So do you have to could you get away with doing only machines and dumbbells? Absolutely. If you are training hard, like if you understand hard training, I've said this during the pandemic and I've said it a few times since. If you give me a rubber band and a toothpick, I'm going to find a way to make gains. Now, this is hyperbole, of course, right? But the point is, if you understand the nature of hard training and progressive overload, you can take that lifter and he will find a way to maximize whatever he has, even if it's not optimal. So that's something you have to remember and consider. Dumbbells are underrated for hypertrophy. It's not that we aren't doing dumbbell exercises, but they are very, very underrated. We tend to default to barbell, and there's nothing wrong with barbell, but dumbbell exercises are equal, if not in many cases, better or superior than some of the barbell counterparts. And it could be by minor degrees. It could be up to the individual, but dumbbells are very, dumbbells, you can really get a lot of mileage out of them when it comes to back training, when it comes to shoulder training, etc. So you can get a lot of value out of dumbbells and machines. Absolutely. The only thing I don't ever want you guys to do is be dogmatic. Hey, the big, hairy, ugly dude said I can do a lot with dumbbells and machines. Therefore, I'm only going to do dumbbells and machines because I've created a system, right? I've done that in a season. I've done that in pretty much any season. I've tried everything. Anything I give to my clients, I've pretty much tried everything. Like before I give people rolling tricep extensions or JM presses, I've spent half a year doing them. So if you want to play around during a season of training, a 3, 4, 5 month phase with only dumbbells and machines and take a break from barbells, by all means do so. Just understand that there's a difference between trying something in a season and turning it into some dogmatic, I must do only this because some influencer said you only need dumbbells and machines, and we're turning it into kind of a pseudo religion. All right, Nolan, can you tell us another lifting story? Let's see. What lifting story should I bring up from the lifting story graveyard? I have so many of them. Some of them I can't tell. I want to talk about my early years real quick, and we'll tell you a story. I was always very much into fitness. I don't know why, just from an early age. I remember from the earliest age being into general activity. I lived across from a school. It was Fahey School in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And I would literally, my day would be like this. I'd go grab the tennis racket and hit a tennis ball against the wall for a half an hour. I'd go play strikeout or baseball for a couple hours. I'd take my basketball and walk over and play basketball. I'd go running at night. My day was just constantly filled with activity like that. During the winter months, I would do step ups, endless step ups on the steps, just endless step ups. There was a professional wrestler once, I believe it was uh, the on the Ted Turner Network, whatever that was, that did step ups for like an hour during a match or during the show to show his conditioning level. I started doing step ups because I found them on that wrestling program. I do a lot of step ups when I couldn't get out and run. And believe it or not, this was the 70s and 80s. You had aerobics, you had aerobics albums and aerobics DVDs. And I would occasionally put one of those on and just move. I mean, I was all about movement. It sounds ridiculous, but you name it, I was all about movement. I did get a concrete weight set somewhere around age 14 or 15. It had a very, very minimal amount of weight, like 80, 90 pounds. I don't remember. I'm not, but I remember doing like 10 sets of 10 on bench with that weight, and then doing a lot of push-ups, just doing the exercises that were in the booklet. Despite all of this activity, I was always skinny fat. I just never looked good. Just looked, I mean, I was like 148 and I looked like a sloppy Joe, right? That's just how I looked. People sometimes look at my accomplishments or look at the physique I developed and they're like, oh, you're a good genetic. I assure you I did not. I was small boned and I was a sloppy Joe sandwich, just nasty. And in high school, I lettered in cross country, and I went out for wrestling. I wasn't very good. I got cut from the baseball team. Yeah, I just wasn't super good. I wasn't the most athletic. But I was always active. And it really wasn't until I went to college in 1986. I went to New Mexico Tech in Socorro, New Mexico, because I wanted to study astrophysics. I love space. I love math. It's an astrophysics heavy school. And if you've ever seen the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, it was filmed there at the Very Large Array, at least those parts of the movie. That's where I went to college. But the important thing is not what I went to college for. They had a small gym, but it was a nice gym. It was a quality gym. And the English professor, Dr. Michael Gilbertson, was a bodybuilder as well. And he was always in there training. And I always remember just watching him and looking up to him. And it started to form in my mind. I started to lift, and he would give me small little tips, and I'd have to walk in Socorro. I didn't have a car, so I'd have to walk to the grocery store to get my bananas and tomato juice and my weekend supplies, because the cafeteria wasn't open on the weekends. And they had bodybuilding. They had a bodybuilding magazine, the Flex or Muscle and Fitness, and I started getting every one. I would read them from cover to cover to cover 800 times over and hang the pictures on my walls and learn. I got the Joe Weider Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, the old black and white book with all the classic lifters. And I just read everything and I just attacked, and ate. We didn't talk about bulking back then, but I remember coming home for Christmas. It was basically 16 months after lifting. I came back in January for my fourth semester. And Dr. Michael Gilbertson pulled me aside into the dumbbell room. And I remember him asking me, "Are you taking anything?" And I'm like, well, this is 1987. I didn't understand the question, right? I legitimately did not understand the question. There's no internet. It's just lifting books. And, I want to be as big as Tom Plant. Are you taking anything? I'm like, I don't understand. He goes, are you taking steroids? Like, what? I didn't even drink alcohol back then. So I guess it was a reflection of how lucky I got to be in a constant bulk without knowing about bulking, and attacking progressive overload without really understanding progressive overload. I just tried to beat the logbook, and heck, I had a cafeteria that gave me as much food as I wanted. And I was an 18 and 19-year-old boy. My body weight went from like 154 to 186. And I was legitimately bulking for 2.5 years, just consistently and slowly. And I was trying to progress with it. I remember after 18 months, my squat top set was up to 365 for 3 or 4 reps. And then my 315 was like 8 or 9. That's where I was after like a year and a half, 2 years. My bench was up to about 275 by 3x4. I'd like to say it was genetics. I'd like to say it was just magic, but it was what it was. I exercised, during my teen years, and I never made really good progress. And then all of a sudden I went off and focused and got a lot of food and got a lot of sleep and just got really strong, and boom, it just all worked. Terry. Good morning, Terry. Thanks for tuning in. Andreas, a client of mine. How do you like the HML method as a type of concurrent periodization? I first ran into the HLM on Casey Butt's forum, who I have nothing but respect for. And a lot of times he would advocate an HLM on a full body. I do not like this. You can do it. I've made these types of workouts in the past, but I prefer when you're creating an HLM, heavy, light, moderate, heavy, light, medium, whatever you want to put the M as, that you cycle each muscle group, so you're not doing all the H's on one day and all the L's on one day and all the mediums on the other day. So, for example, heavy day could be like a squat or a deadlift or a bench press or a barbell overhead or military press or pendlay row. If you try to do those all on the same day and have a heavy day, Godspeed, my friend. It's just not fun. But that's how some of the HLMs were. I prefer to just, balance it out a little bit more and maybe do a heavy day on bench on Monday, like barbell bench, a lighter exercise, the next time like a pecky decky, and then a more medium, moderate, like dumbbell bench for a little bit more reps. So, yeah, I mean, it's reasonable. I mean, you need that kind of variety in your program anyway. You can't just do all big hitters. So I believe it's woven into the fabric of most good programs as it is in some degree or another. Big Jimmy. Let me get a drink. You saw my big bench explosion yesterday. He says he's ready to take me on. Let me tell you something, Jimmy Cooksworth. Number one, I'm very he had a +3, which was super impressive. But I will say, I'm a super competitive guy, and I like to lift heavy weights. I'm trying to find something here just to kind of show Jimmy his future. Here we go. Hold on a minute. Let me just mute the music because I don't want YouTube to have a heart attack. Let me just share this with you. The glorious moment from the old school dungeon. The glorious moment from the old school dungeon. Now, whoops. Ba, ba, ba. There we go. That's the old big hairy ugly dude. Hold on, my wife's messaging me. Just give me 1 second. So this is 500 pounds. I got chains and a slingshot on, obviously, so it's not a straight 500-pound bench press. I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but if somebody wants to come to the arena, let's watch the old big hairy ugly dude in action. My true bench was around 440 at this time. I'm not a great bencher naturally. I think I'm a better deadlifter naturally. I just struggle to, other than being super fat, I struggle to get my bench above 400, without being super fat. You can see my eccentrics are always slower than anything, but yeah, I live this stuff, man. I absolutely love it. That's it, man. That's your future. Come get it. Big Jeff, good morning, Team Massive. Good to have you here. David, happy Friday from the UK. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. This may be an unusual question, but is there the possibility to get sleep apnea as a normal weighted guy if your neck is too weak? Or I don't know. Sleep apnea tends to, like, scientifically, we tend to see sleep apnea very prevalent in men that have 17-inch necks or larger. Regardless of muscle or fat or what the composition is, the extra stuff putting pressure in here, the big neck, tends to create the sleep apnea, or contribute to sleep apnea. I was going to measure my neck live on camera, but I don't have the thing handy. But anyway, our food choices, alcohol choices, alcohol can do that. It can add or worsen sleep apnea. And if we're eating a lot of junk food and, getting inflammation, that can add to the severity or onset of sleep apnea. But I don't know about neck being too weak. From my understanding, it is mostly about the size of the neck or the internal pressure, and also, the confounding factors of like alcohol, etc. I'm no expert on it. That's all I know. Isaac, if you were to add clean and press, which day would you put it on? If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it on deadlift day because, there's many ways to do it. On the deadlift, doing it after the deadlift while your central nervous system is heightened would be fine, as long as it would make sense in the program. It really is program dependent because it's a unicorn lift. You're working your shoulders, you're working your traps, you're working your mid back, you're working the hip hinge. It's really tough to say. It really comes down to the split and where it fits in the split. And I wish I could give you a more concrete answer than that. But that's the honest truth. If you want me to look at your split, don't hesitate to post that up and I'd be happy to take a look. Big Bob, what are your thoughts on age as it relates to bulking? Should an older lifter say it? Yeah, absolutely. The process is the process. What an older lifter wants to do is really focus on getting in their nutrients, their quality food choices. And we only do conservative bulking in the massive iron world anyway. It's a long process. We serve that. We serve the long process. We are following the long process. So You could do a 3-month bulk and gain 6.6 pounds, 6.5, 7 pounds, and then do a cut. If you don't want to get too far away from home, or you could do 10 or 12. As long as your overall body weight is reasonable, you're taking care of yourself, and you're not, doing a lot of crazy shenanigans. Varying your weight 7 to 10 or upwards of 12 pounds is not really an issue. It's when men start to enter the heart attack zone, they get above 240, then it's generally more of an issue. What's a good weight to lift with for progressive overload? I don't understand the question, Bowen. I'm not being dismissive. Weight percentage. Sorry, I missed percentage. There is no percentage. It's check out my book, Massive Iron. You don't work in percentages. You work in reasonable rep ranges, and you have at least one set per exercise. Push for maximum safe quality reps. We don't worry about percentages. They're not magical. They're not needed. They're not part of the process. That's actually insane for dumbbell. I don't know. I realized once I started using VersaGrip set, my back was a lot stronger than I thought. And I think at some point your back, the weight you use for your back exercises should overshadow your ability to grip it. Some people don't like to hear that. Some people like to say, I'm going to use lighter weight because I want to train my grip. I don't train my grip on back day. I train my back on back day. And if my grip needs work, I train it on grip day. So the one thing, if I could stress anything to you guys with regards to back strength, is your back is a lot stronger than you think, and you need to up your standards. Ian, good to see you. If performance is better, for example, if I split chest to 2 days, I end up getting more reps. Something's always going to suffer. This is something I posted on Team Massive yesterday. We're after hard training. Something's always going to be second and third and fourth in any split. What we want to do is work on work capacity. Like if you do a body part split and you do bench and then you do dumbbell bench, and dumbbell bench feels a little bit weaker after bench, that's normal. If you do squats first and then you do bench later, you're going to be a little bit fatigued on bench. That's normal. However you structure a program, something's going to be second, third, or fourth, right? It's the one thing we have to focus on is we're not worried about raw numbers. We're worried about building up our work capacity, and something's always going to suffer because we're working on our work capacity and we're trying to build up our overall strength in whatever lane or program you use. I want you to use the program you want to use, but this idea that you can't get strong doing back-to-back-to-back pressing exercises is ridiculous. Usually it's just indicative of a lack of work capacity, and people panic too much. Like the second exercise is weaker and my third exercise, good. That's what we want. That's hypertrophy. In 1997 and 1999, I was doing an upper day. I would lead off with a lot of bench volume, and then I would do a lot of dumbbell bench volume. So my bench, I was doing a lot of volume with 365 to 400 on bench. And then I was doing dumbbell bench with the heaviest weights I could. I don't recall what the dumbbells were. And then my third exercise was a seated dumbbell overhead. I was up to 120s for fives. And I'm not mentioning that to brag because I didn't worry about strength, but that was my third exercise in the mix. If you are suffering, it's usually more indicative that your work capacity needs improvement than over worrying about splits, right? We need to worry about hard training. However you structure things, if you're structuring things to get another rep out of your dumbbell bench, that's okay, but you kind of have to do a little bit of self-analysis of what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to become the world's strongest dumbbell bencher and get one more rep? Or are you trying to put together a good hypertrophy program that really pushes the body hard? I would say it's good for the body to feel weaker on that second exercise because, number one, you get an opportunity to work on work capacity. And number two, it shows you did something quality on the first exercise. So don't overthink this stuff. Too many people try to shuffle pieces around the board. And one of the common things is on a body part split, the second or third exercise, I'm feeling weak. If you're feeling weak, your work capacity sucks. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And we all are at that stage. But if you start off with deadlifts and then you do a military press and then you do another compound movement, you should, no matter what split you're using, after the third exercise, start to question your sanity because you're working hard. You should feel that drop off. You should feel that residual stress, that stress after each exercise, regardless of the program. You can't put everything first. And that's not the point of hypertrophy. But the lie is that if it's not first or if it's second and you feel a little bit fatigued, that you can't get brutally strong or maximize that lift. That's a complete lie. And you start to chase something. You're starting to chase, maybe if I just had the magical program, the magical structure, the magical organization of exercises, you're starting to overthink. You need to detach from that and become a fucking force of nature. That is where the growth occurs. Taking on this challenge, trying to become a force of nature, not worrying about splits. Use the split you want. It doesn't matter. But we want to become a force of nature. We want to be able to go 3 or 4 lifts deep on a pressing day or a chest day and be a force of nature. We want to end that second exercise on chest day and go, man, I am spent, but it is time to drive on and push ourselves. Because in the pushing, right, in the building, in the conditioning, that's where the true growth is happening. It's not as simple as perfect exercise selection, organization, whatever. You should be kicking yourself so hard in the cojones that you are judging whether you're trying to understand after the second and third exercise whether you are sane to do what you are doing. Does that make sense? Steve, posted on Facebook. I have no idea if you saw it. Sorry, we got that one already. My apologies. I find that if I deadlift after squat, I recover better than separating the two. Hey, if you find it, do it. If you find that works out for you, do it. There are many times during the late 2000s and early 2010s where I would deadlift or squat on the same day. It's not fun. It can be done. But, recovery, and this is the magic of evolving things based on needs. It's one of the pillars of success in my book, Massive Iron and Massive Omnibus. And people often ask what it means. It means this. You found that you can do this, so you do this. Many other people will find the opposite. And that doesn't mean you're doing something right or they're doing something wrong or that you created a magic rule. This is where influencers get really, really off track. They'll find something that they like, and then they'll try to apply it to everybody. This is the fodder of idiots. It really is. Lifting is so highly individual. We can't explain why Ian feels good on this when everybody else feels bad, but this is evolving training based on needs. If I do upper lower split, my performance is a lot higher compared to like body part split. Why does this not show? It's not better. That's for you. Ian, I'm the opposite. I can lift all day on a body part split. Why does that not show that body part splits are better? They're not better, Ian. Please let this go for the love of all things holy. I implore you guys to let this go. Scientifically, there's no benefit in anything. There's been 3 meta-analyses. Let it go, guys. It's not about a magic split. If it works for you, go for it. Most of my clients do upper lowers or upper posteriors or torso limbs. And I'm being polite here, but we need to detach from this. It's flawed logic, Ian. What works for you because it works for you and you like it and you're going to work it hard. What works for me and I like it and I'm going to work it hard. If you like an upper lower split, it's superior for you. I like a body part split, it's superior for me. None of these things matter over the course of 10 years. None of them, because it's all about weekly volume and progressive overload and hard training and remaining consistent and nailing your nutrition. That's it. That's all it's about. Why do you want it to be better, Ian? Why? I'm just asking. I'm not being confrontational, but why do you want a frequency training to be better when scientifically it's been shown that nothing is really better, that hard training is better? Why do you want it to be better, Ian? TGIF, Steve. I'm sorry. I find when doing hacks, my left foot seems to move a bit more from my original foot position. During the lift, I keep my eye on my knees. Just keep an eye on that. That's we want to be careful with that. I'd love to see a video, but I don't want. I really don't want to see that happening because things can get crazy when your feet are moving. That means you could potentially put extra stress on your knees or your hips. So just be really, really careful with that. Jay, paper. I don't have much equipment, just a power bar and 500 pounds in weights and a half rack. What would you suggest for assistance work? That would require a lot of programming, a lot of time to work through things. But if I do this a lot with clients, I do this a lot with building custom workouts. And if any of you need a custom workout, you can go over to my website, superlivingtoday.com, and just search custom. So on the chest, there's many things you can do. You can do the bench press, you can do the floor press, you can do the close grip bench, you can do the guillotine press, you can do the 1.5 rep bench. For triceps, you can do the JM press, you can do the close grips, you could maybe do a French press. Let's see, what am I missing here? On back, you could do deadlifts, Pendley rows, Yates rows, inverted rows, Meadows rows are a great choice. Overhead presses, you could do a BTN press, you could do a standing or seated overhead press, you could do a landmine press, you could do high pulls, you could do upright rows, legs, squats, front squats, front squats. You could also potentially do Bulgarians with the bar on your back or lunges with the bar on your back. So there's a lot of stuff you could do. If you need more help, just join Team Massive. I'd be glad to help you out. 2-minute block, RG30 is great for leg curls and extensions. Block training is something I use occasionally or advocate occasionally where you have a timed block. 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 120 seconds, even going crazier, upwards of 3 or 4 minutes, where you just try to do as many reps as you can, rest, pause style during that time period. And you set a rep goal. And if you hit that rep goal, I hit 30 leg extension reps in 2 minutes, then you would add weight. So that's what Andreas is talking about. It's a fun way to train. It's very engaging. You aren't just mindlessly working through reps. You're actually, you're feeling like every second is really super intense and focused. So going for late, heavy overheads with clusters, still sore in the terrace group, so I'll skip lats today. Clusters are a lot of fun. I have a video on my channel of BTNs where I'm doing rest pause clusters of like 225 for multiple sets of 3 or something like that. A lot of fun. Ian. And Ian, the last question, I'm not, I hope you don't find me being confrontational. I know it's an honest question, but the frequency thing really has to die. I don't care how anybody trains, but the key is I want you guys laser focused on hard training and progression. That's the magic, especially for training over the course of 10 years. I always felt junk volume is basically when you're already stimulated in muscle, and after the exercises, you basically just keep sandbagging. Anything that's related to sandbagging is going to be junk volume. Junk volume is also when you're not focused on progressive overload. You could go into the gym right now and do 3 sets of 10 with 165 on bench, but over the next 5 years, if you never try to progressively overload, it's just junk training. I've had guys come to me that said they've been lifting 15, 20 years, and they're still using like 50 pounds on dumbbell bench. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but their training has been junk because they've never been progressively overloading. They're waiting for it to get lighter, and they're not attacking. They're not really training hard. Terry. Cody Lefevre has a similar system, 3x15 with last set AMRAP and a rep goal. Good, man. That sounds great. Anything like that is very, very reasonable. One important lesson from Mensa, I think most people, me included, mess up is recovery in relation to work, in relation to the overarching structure of the program. Recovery is very nuanced, and we like to paint with broad strokes. Recovery is different in exercise to exercise and muscle to muscle, and you can use the same protocol, rest pause or every set to failure on different muscle groups or different exercises, and it's going to have different recovery demands. So everything has to be highly individualized in that lane, if that makes sense. Big George. Hello, good sir. Thank you. I have a question. How can I put maximum effort in the gym while sets are, for example, 3x10? Because I feel that if I do 3x10 means the first set, it's not 100%, but not every set needs to be 100% to get good results. If you start at 135 on bench, okay, and you're doing 3 sets of 10, let's say you're 6 months into training. Think of things like an external force placed upon the body, okay? It's not a simple equation where maximum sets is the only thing that matters for hypertrophy, okay? Think of it like this. You do 3 sets of 10 with 135 as a beginner, okay? That's a pressure or a force being placed on the body, and the body's going to push back and grow. It's a dumbing down of the process, but basically it's a really quality example of how hypertrophy works in a bigger, more vaporous sense. You have an external force being placed on the body, and the body will respond by pushing back or growing against that external force. 3 sets of 10 and 135. If you never increase that intensity, the body has strengthened to the point where it's going to handle that external stress, and it has no reason to grow, expand, get bigger. Now, if you take 2 lifters, one that does every set for maximum reps, one that does only 1, okay, and they get to 315 for 3 sets of 10 from 135. All of a sudden, they have 315 pounds for 3 sets of 10. Pressure, external pressure placed upon the body. They're both going to be equally big because the body is pushing back against that external stress. The person doing 3 sets of 10 with only one set. The back down sets, the first two sets are going to progressively get harder and harder and add mechanical tension and stress and pressure. Okay. Stress. Even though they aren't to failure, the last set is always going to be pushed for maximum safe reps because you can't progress without at least one set doing so. And the other sets are going to pull up behind it. So they're going to get progressively more difficult as you add weight. And I know this can sound controversial to the crew that wants to push every set to failure. You can't generally do that over the long run without making a lot of adjustments. It's also not a requirement. You all really only need, we have to take the long-term view, and we need to also view that we can't beat up the body. So we need to adjust every exercise based on the specific demands it is placing on the body. Some exercises for my clients, I have them push all sets for maximum safe reps. Some I don't. It's very exercise dependent. For example, on pressing, it's not as punishing on the body to push every set for maximum reps. You did that on posterior work, you'd end up in the hospital or an injury or out of the gym. So we have to take everything on an exercise by exercise basis. If we don't, we're simply being idiots. We're making black and white rules and trying to march behind black and white rules because we made black and white rules, and we need everything to be tidy and uniform in the same box. And that, my friend, is not lifting. It's not. It's somebody making an arbitrary rule that doesn't understand the nature of lifting. So I'm not saying that's you, my friend, but this external force, if you move from 135 to 3 sets of 10, the body's going to respond. If you move that to 315 for 3 sets of 10, the body is going to respond pretty much equally, no matter whether you're pushing 1, 2, or 3 sets to failure, because failure is not the magic. Progressive overload is the magic in the lane of hard training. We don't want somebody benching, bouncing the bar off their chest. That's not hypertrophy training. And to think like I'm getting no value out of volume when it is in the context of a structure of progressive overload is incorrect. There's plenty of examples of this and littered in the history of lifting. I've done it for many, many exercises over the years. A lot of the power lifters would do volume. It's a lie to think that if a set isn't pushed to failure, that it has no value. This is getting very much into the black and white, and it's taking the complete nuance out of the overall impact of the program, if that makes sense. What is your favorite sci-fi or fantasy novel? So I would say the Rama series from Arthur Clarke, just a doorstopper of a whopper, is probably one of my favorite science fiction series. And after that, Titan, Wizard, and Demon by John Varley would be up there. Holistic Dad, hey coach and team, favorite cutting meals? Good question. I like to have for me, I like simple. I like having instant potatoes or instant rice, along with lean bison and lean venison. You can get, basically, they have like 520 calories in a pack of bison or venison, and then you put that with potatoes or rice, and you're up close to 1,000. And you can put in pickled onions or jalapenos or carrots or asparagus or broccoli. You can just pack on the veggie volume, and you get a lot of volume in a bigger meal. Some of the things I like to do to fill in the blanks. What I just had over here was a big can of peaches with a container of Greek yogurt. A lot of food volume, not a lot of calories. One of the best ways to get in food volume is to, you can if you like tomatoes, dice up 3 big tomatoes, put in some plain Greek yogurt, some Frank's Red Hot and salt, you can fill a bowl literally this big with food, and you're getting in protein, you're getting in some veggies. You can put other things in there. One of the meals that I do when I'm cutting from time to time is I'll make this big bowl of Greek yogurt based gloop. So I'll take like a bunch of Greek yogurt and put it in a big bowl. And then I'll put in a little bit of dry cheese like Parmesan or Asiago. Not a lot. We're trying to keep the calorie count reasonable. I'll put in jalapenos. I'll put in diced tomatoes. I'll put in pickled onions. I just go to the pickle section, right? And I get the pickled onions and the jalapenos and the roasted red pepper is another brilliant ingredient when you're cutting. You can just dice that up and put that in there. All of a sudden, you take this glob of like 400 calories of plain Greek yogurt, and you slice a couple tomatoes, and you put in a metric ton of jalapenos, and you put in pickled onions, and you put in roasted red pepper. You have this bowl of food volume that is like 800 calories, and it's high protein. And if you wanted to, you could toss in some egg whites or eggs into the mix. Egg whites, cook them up and mix them in with the Greek yogurt to bring up the protein content and protein diversity. Or you could cube chicken or pork loin and put it in there as well. But I like to, when I'm cutting, rely more on Greek yogurt and add in pickled onions, roasted red peppers, jalapenos, that sort of thing, because it can add so much food volume. Jim Butcher and Robert Heinlein. Classic movie. What were we referencing? I forgot what movie I referenced earlier, and I mentioned the movie, and I saw this comment pop up. I'm forgetting what planet I'm on. Big Jimmy. I just realized my comprehension of massive iron has improved dramatically once I finally realized that hard training, progressive overload, and reasonable selection of exercise are what matter. It is. And, earlier Ian was asking about frequency, and it was an honest question. But in the long run, I have seen and worked with, every era and every type of lifter, and they all train differently. The only thing that proves is that there's no magic program, no magic frequency. Once we get into the realm where we start to believe there is magic, contact, thank you. I completely forgot what the heck I was talking about. Once we get in the realm, when you walk into the lifting space and someone's believing in magical exercises or a magical split or a magical frequency or magical foods, they are really off. They're in the black and white world, and they lack the context to understand the bigger picture. It's not an insult. Harris, you mentioned so many back exercises, but no love for dumbbell lat pull downs. I think I was talking about, the individual was talking about barbell only, I believe. So no insult at all to dumbbell pullover, dumbbell lat. I assume you mean dumbbell pullover. But yeah, the individual earlier, I believe, was talking about barbell and a rack exclusively. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ice cold. Happy Friday, Team Massive. Haven't been to the live stream due to life being busy. Glad to see you here. But other than that, I've already nailed a few PRs. Good, man. I'm glad things are going well for you. I'm glad to say that I've done 5x5 with 145 and overhead. That's wonderful. 165 is kind of that big standard that I like to see everybody get to, because few people do. 135 is a great level to get to. 165 is just that next level. You bet. Thank you. All the questions, man. Bring them all in. That's what I'm here for. This is what I live for every week, so I appreciate it. Big Nolan. Any advice for safety squat bar squats? Feeling a little bit loose on those in the upper back, and anything on staying tight. The key thing is you want to brace the core. When I trained with Donnie Thompson in South Carolina, at the time he was the strongest power lifter in the history of powerlifting. So I trained at his gym on and off for a year. He taught me to lock the handles down, to kind of gently pull the elbows down on SSB squats. Now, you don't have to do that. You can stay loose or looser. But if you're feeling a little bit loose on those in the upper back, try pulling down just slightly as you descend and see if that helps. Isaac. About the neck size question. I've never trained my neck, but I have a 16-inch neck. How do I keep you down, man? This is something I've talked about so many times over the years, especially with individuals that want a bigger neck. And my point was always, you won't really see necks small on experienced lifters. And 99% of them aren't training their necks directly. The necks are just going to grow, just like your facial muscles are going to pick up some muscularity, and your forearms are going to, I have 14.5-inch forearms. I don't train my forearms directly. These things will grow by default. That doesn't mean you can't do neck work or forearm work, but my point has always been, you are going to grow the neck by default. And if you are adding in extra work, then you're probably going to make your neck a little bit bigger, and sleep apnea is going to be in your future. The only thing you can do to help combat that is eat well, don't eat a lot of junk, and don't let your body fat get higher, and that should help to a degree. But so many lifters I know live in the sleep apnea world. It's just kind of part of the journey. What are your advice for lifters who really want to do back squats and front squats, but they have longer than average legs? Do them. The only advice is to do them and adjust. Everybody's built a little bit differently. Everybody's got a unique setup, unique genetics, unique limb lengths, unique leverages. The only thing as a coach you can do is look at a squat and adjust based on what you're seeing. There's no real generic advice. You have to look at the big picture and adjust. So the only thing I can say is just give me videos and I'll take a look. When bulking, is 5 pounds of weight gain too much, especially on them? Oh yeah, I would never get that aggressive. You bulk 3 months. I like a phase of training, a good hard phase of training to be, like 3 to 5 months. 3 is a little bit on the light end, but you can do it. But in that context, you're looking at 15 to 25 pounds of weight gain. The more you gain, the more time you spend in more time you're going to have to spend in a calorie deficit. So the more aggressive you get in the bulk over the course of a year, the more time you're going to spend in a cut on average over the course of a year. And what that is going to do for you is it's going to take you away from a bulk for a longer period of time. So you want to be reasonable, you want to be smart, and you want to play the long game. Aggressive-wise, if you wanted to do an 8-month bulk and gain 25 pounds, that'd probably be about the most aggressive I would get. Man, I mean, if you want to pack on 30 pounds, you're looking at probably, if you're a rock star, 3-month cut and then a 4-month cut. Who wants to do that? Right? I want to stay in a longer, more sustainable bulk. So I would never go that high. Personally, I never advocate it. How much should I be able to SSB squat relative to barbell squat? I'm at about 70%, and that seems low. I don't know because I've never pushed an SSB squat. Well, let me backtrack. I did safety squats with Donnie Thompson, uh, and I was up around 460. I don't. It's going to depend on the individual. I don't know. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. The weight distribution is going to be different. You're moving your hands forward from back here, so you're putting more weight forward of the center of the body. It's going to change the dynamics of the lift a little bit, but it's really hard to say. It's really going to be highly individual. I don't know, Aaron, because I have not seen a lot of lifters really pushing their SSB squats and then having a comparison. But I think anywhere from 70 to 90%, depending on the individual, should be normal. I don't think it indicates a weakness. Not at all. It's just like a front squat, you move your weight forward of the body and you become more upright. It changes the dynamic, and most people can't front squat what they can back squat. So it's really going to depend on the individual. Thoughts on push-pull legs 5 days a week? Yeah, absolutely. As long as you have rest days in and you're recovering, that's fine. I've had many clients do that. And I like to work in ABs, like AB splits, like push A, pull A, legs A, push B, pull B, legs B, just to get in a little bit of a variety. For an intermediate lifter, I'm just checking things out here. Where are we at? For an intermediate lifter, is dedicated trap work necessary, or will they see if you do a lot of big back work and overhead pressing work, you're going to have a base. If you want the biggest traps, you should be doing some sort of dedicated trap work. I'll just leave it at that. If you want just average, you don't want to look like a mountain neck, then overhead presses and general back work to a degree are going to work the traps. I mean, the traps are a complicated muscle group. They have the upper traps, the mid traps, and the lower traps, and we tend to lump everything together sometimes. But the upper traps is generally what we're talking about. And if you want big, you should be training them hard and directly. Big Mike M. If you don't feel like you're getting the most out of a certain exercise, how long do you stick to it before rotating it out? If you have a good selection of exercise, you can get that sucker out today. It says, I'm not going to spend time doing exercises that I don't connect with. There's too many other good exercises. So if you want personal experience, or you're not certain, about an exercise or its value, give it a little bit of time, maybe a month. But if you just don't like it, just rotate it out and do something else. What RPE, RIR should we try to keep while maximizing the set? I don't worry about that because the demands of every exercise are different. We don't worry about perceived exertion. We have to train as hard on an exercise as the exercise allows. If you pushed squats to the limit every workout, it would beat the living crap out of your body and beat the living crap out of your lower back, and you're going to increase injury risk. So I always stop sets of squats 2 to 3 reps shy of the danger zone. My squats have still progressed where I've squatted well over 600 pounds. My quads are as big as I need to be. And again, it smashes the whole concept that every set needs to be to failure, right? But I would progress safely in that lane. On the other hand, presses, you can pretty much take every set of a press to the limit, or what we would call 10 RPE or 0 IRR, and it's really not going to punish the body. The same with a row. And rows are going to be different. But like on a pendlay row or a barbell row, when speed starts to slow, you've hit form failure or mechanical failure, and it's generally not punishing on the body. On the other hand, a dumbbell row might be a little bit more punishing on the body. So what we need to always understand is that this is exercise dependent, and there is no black and white. Any influencer or personality that starts to talk about black and white when it comes to RPE or RIR is quite honestly clueless. And that's not an insult. It's just an honest assessment. The belief that you're going to plateau, you are going to plateau. That's how lifting works. It's nothing to fear. Plateauing, as we think of it in lifting, is a natural slowing of progression. That's how it works. Progression is going to be lightning fast out of the gate, and then it's going to naturally slow. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. A true plateau is when you haven't added a rep on a lift in months. And that is extremely rare, but it can happen on things like the lat pull downs, where you're just going to hit kind of a hard wall because of the restrictions of the equipment, or cable crossovers where you just can't literally become Herculean at. But the connecting this, like, you have two different concepts. You have RP and RIR, and you're trying to figure out how hard to push things so you don't plateau. If you're not pushing things relative to the lift, then you're going to do junk volume and you're not going to advance. Does that make sense? And thanks again, Manimal. I appreciate it. I had a temporarily brain fart. How far can 90-pound power blocks get you? Pretty darn far. I mean, if you can overhead 90s, you're a big boy. Dumbbell bench, you probably 120s is more, but still 90s are pretty darn respectful. Dumbbell rows are going to be the exercise where you wish you'd add more weight, but you could do a Meadows row at home with a barbell and you would be absolutely fine. I trained it directly for a bit and it got way too big. Oh, we're talking about neck training. If your gym time is limited and you have no preference between training traps, abs, calves, how would you rank these muscle groups? They're always last priority. That doesn't mean we don't want to train them, and it doesn't mean there's no value in training them. So I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way. But we train our four major areas of focus: chest, back, shoulders, and quads. Then we fill in the gaps after that with biceps, triceps, and hamstrings. So that's the chain. Boom, get the biggies. Boom, get the minors. And then after that, depending on preferences or existing growth or existing size or existing goals, we fill in the gaps after that. And everybody's going to be different. We're not all bodybuilders. We don't all want big forearms or big calves or big traps or big tibias or grip strength or neck size or whatever. So what you do after that, we're trying to maximize the time we have. And what you do after that, forearms, calves, traps, maybe adding in more rear delt work, neck work, whatever you're doing, that's all preference. Big Joe, your channel got me back into standing Viking press. I can't go heavy anymore, but the fact I'm overhead pressing with 2 torn rotator cuffs. Good, man. I had a Viking attachment. I just never had it set up properly in the gym where I could get maximum. Part of the problem with a Viking press is just finding a position where you can actually perform the lift without it feeling like it's harder to get into position and do it. Long legs here. I find using a 5-pound plate under the heel. Yeah, some people do it. Some people that feels good for. People ask me, can I do it? Can I do it? You can absolutely do it. As long as it feels good. As long as it feels good. Done enough low bar in my time now. I need to bring up quads. All right, guys, last call. We got 4 questions left. If I don't get any more questions, I'll be jumping off. Thank you, guys. This has been a wonderful live with a lot of good information and a lot of good questions. Thanks, Steve. Got to run. Thank you for tuning in, David. Is there any benefit, honestly, in doing rear delt Um, rear delt work, yeah. I believe it's like the last 10%. There's a lot of quality rear delt works, rear delt swings, bent over flies, reverse pec deck, even behind the back shrugs where you pull it above the glutes. I find this to give me the best pump on the rear delts of all. So there's a lot of good rear delt work or rear delt exercises. Do you need to do them if you're doing a lot of big rows? Not necessarily. Side lateral raises, I always do them because I like the lift, but they're always like the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. How to fix excessive upper back run. Your upper back, you don't fix that. You don't deadlift with a flat upper back. It's not a problem. You don't want to deadlift with a flat upper back because you're going to risk tears. If you start flat upper back, immediately when you pull, it's going to pull you forward anyway. You don't do a deadlift with scapular retraction or halfway scapular retraction or full scapular retraction. Anybody that teaches this doesn't really understand physiology or the nature of lifting. So if you guys have anybody that out there that's trying to teach this to you, you probably need to do something called unsubscribe, right? Because the scapula, the nature of the scapula, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is to hold things statically in place. Okay. So it's working hard during a deadlift. If you're trying to retract the scapula and you all of a sudden deadlift, it's going to throw your shoulders forward no matter what. You're going to lose that tightness. You're just going to encourage tears in that area. Upper back rounding is the nature of a deadlift. It's not the enemy. It's when your form is jacked up and you deadlift hips too high or hips too low and your lower back's taking a beating that we have to worry about. And you also said I'm strong on lockout, weak on the floor. If you're weak on the floor, get your quad strong, get your upper back strong, get your yoke strong. Just become a gorilla. That will help. If I progress weekly on just 4 sets per muscle group, should I add more? 4 sets per muscle group's a little bit on the low end. Do you have time to add more? If so, yes, you should add more. Absolutely. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks, Manimal. I appreciate you tuning in. Big J, shrugs on a leg day. Yeah, absolutely. Like with a push-pull legs, it's nice on paper. Push, pull, leg sounds balanced, right? But when you program, it can't always be balanced. It doesn't balance, it doesn't just perfectly balance because the names sound right? Push, pull, leg should be perfectly balanced. Upper, lower should be perfectly balanced. That's not the way programming works. So yeah, you can definitely do shrugs on a leg day if you have time. It's after back. You haven't really overworked your traps on back day. They're probably pretty fresh. So absolutely, that gets my blessing. Big Daniel, thanks for debunking all this lifting horse crap. My pleasure. I'm just glad you guys are listening and open to the bigger path. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. All right, guys, I'm going to hang around for a couple seconds, see if any other questions come in. Before I do so, please, where do we go? Please check out my website, superlivingtheday.com. Get a t-shirt, get a custom workout. Sign up for coaching. I'd love to work with you. And if not, come on over to Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Ben the Barman. Whoops, what did I did? There we go. All right, guys, that is it. Please come back next Friday. Thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful week. Boy, did this go quick today. Have a wonderful weekend.